today on some of the work that we're doing here at Texas Southmost College. Thank you, Dr. Roberts, for allowing me to do this. I'm going to take you through our process here as we prepared for the SAC-COC visit in 2019. And I just want to begin by discussing the outline of this presentation. My name is Dr. Karen M. White Goizueta, and I'm the Director of Curriculum and Assessment. This will be our session outline, just to get everyone understanding how we moved forward with the ISAE. So I use the design thinking for assessment. That process is about a 5-step process. It allows you to look at your challenges, try to learn something about your challenges, how to interpret what's happening here with the assessment process, to see opportunities was in the ideation stage, and then to come up with an idea and design it and create it is the experimentation stage. And finally, the evolution, which is the biggest part of this slide deck, is how we took the information from ISAE and began to really attempt to design our courses in a way that would allow students to actually be successful in demonstrating their mastery of student learning outcomes. So I joined Texas Southmost College March 2018. Reaffirmation was scheduled October 2019. So the compliance certification was due March 2019. I literally, from the point of starting in March to fall of 2018, had to come up with a new design for the assessment process. I will talk a little bit more about what were the concerns, but it literally was only 4 months for me to come up with a design that was going to provide us with a 1 semester of data that was collected, write the assessment report, and provide evidence for the compliance certification that was due March 2019. Along with that, there was a General Education Assessment Committee that I worked with the faculty. And this General Education Assessment Committee was formed in 2017, and they primarily were the faculty representing all of the general education courses that were within the core curriculum. And so they were beginning to start to go to LEAP conferences and attend AAC and U Summer Institute. And when I joined in March of 2018, I began to tag along with them so that we could come together as a group and determine how we were going to evaluate the current assessment model as well as design a new one. So as we began to evaluate the assessment process, these were the things that we found: inconsistent evaluation of core objectives by course, inconsistent forms, data collection, analysis, interpretation, even intervention at the program and course level. There were multiple assignments by course within a discipline. There were inconsistent alignment of core objectives, student learning outcomes, and performance levels in general education courses. And there was a minimal evidence of continuous improvement in student learning outcomes. When I joined, this information was pretty much gleaned from the reports that Texas Southmost College was using to assess their course level student learning outcomes and their program level student learning outcomes. And the reports that I was looking at were giving me this level of information, and it was a great opportunity for us to begin to redesign our assessment process because they'd already had an assessment process in place. So we had to interpret the self-study compliance report. So it wasn't just to write the self-study compliance report and submit it to SAC-COC, but it was also to really look at where we're at and where we need to go for use of findings for improvement, which is what primarily both the coordinating board and SAC-COC and all of the other programmatic accreditors want us to do. So basically there were about 9 areas that I saw during my submission of the focus report of the self-study compliance report, and these were the items that I saw. Lack or misuse of curriculum mapping by course, misalignment of student learning outcomes, core objectives, and program levels, misuse of forms, collection of data analysis, use of different assessment instruments, lack of or misuse of direct and indirect measures of assessment, capture of data provided minimal evidence of extraction of assessment for core objectives from program study student learning outcomes, and ambiguity exists regarding locality of all components used for assessment at the course level. We identified expected outcomes were the same regardless of content and skill complexity associated with the program. And finally, sampling of student completed work was not conducted. So this self-study allowed me to really dig deep with the faculty and the instructional designers for ETOL and really decide how we were going to move forward and ensure that we had the proper assessment of our student learning outcomes in an authentic and transparent way. So ideation, the changing of the Deictic dialogue, what that means is that as you talk to one person or the other, from faculty to faculty members, program to program, discipline to discipline, everybody was saying different things that they thought assessment meant. They had different terminology. They were not really using the same rubrics, same operational values, numerical values. And so this made it very difficult for us to really come together and have a true, authentic, and transparent assessment process. So I started talking about how can we do this. So practice and purpose is basically just really telling them how we're going to do this and why, what we need to do based on the self-study compliance report that we submitted. And we already had an assessment process in place, but we had to really redesign and refine what we had to ensure that we were going to be showing a level of improvement, which is the most important and most significant purpose of education, is allowing ourselves as teachers and faculty members to grow. So these are the things that I spoke to the faculty about during our fall 2018 convocation. And these were the areas that I really tried to engage and get buy-in by the faculty, especially letting them know that their expertise really mattered and that we could apply their expertise to building new assessment activities through a collaboration rather than a rebuttal process, and increase the student learning, the faculty learning, the program, and the course learning outcomes. So we had to build on disciplinary expertise and perspectives. We built focus group for collaboration sessions, wanted to allow for flexibility within a shared framework. That means to be coming with a unity of mind, common terminology, etc. We wanted to frame the assessment as improving learning environment and academic rigor. There is a misconception that, you know, making assignments very difficult increases academic rigor, but that is not true. And so we were really trying to shift our mindset, have a growth mindset about the process of assessment of teaching and learning. And so these are little things that may not seem important, but when you dig deeper into the data, you find out that faculty have different concepts and mindsets about what academic rigor is. And so also to embed assessment in the work faculty had created that really fed into assessment of student learning outcomes and actual improvement activities, like what were going to be the interventions, what were going to be the classroom assessment techniques that they were going to use to allow the student to demonstrate their mastery of the content without being too difficult. Then also creating and modifying the program's PSLOs, course learning outcomes, student learning outcomes, and core objective alignment. Again, as I mentioned, as doing this study for the compliance report, there really was not a lot of alignment. And so we really needed to come together and redesign the course and the curriculum mapping and just really modify this area to create alignment. Once we did that, we redesigned the assessment model altogether and included timely data analysis, recommendation, and creation of improvement plans. Finally, we just really wanted to exemplify a culture of academic excellence that reflects TSC core values, and most of all, fostering student success here at TSC. So when I presented this to the faculty, I really needed to help them to understand the how and the why, because we know that a lot of times as faculty members, we have the right intentions, and when we have been teaching for a while, we believe that our process of pedagogy or andragogy is, you know, valid and relevant to the course and to the teaching of the content in our disciplines. However, I really needed to help them to get closer to understanding about assessment. And so I created what's called Iterative Signature Assignment Evaluator group. And I had to design several pieces, which I'm going to discuss in the upcoming slides. But before designing those pieces, I had to let the faculty understand the how and the why. And so the first thing that I really wanted us to do was reduce the Deictic nature of assessment dialogue, get everybody with a common language and understanding of what assessment meant, what formative assessment meant, what summative assessment meant, what classroom assessment techniques meant, and then how to really attempt to have some evidence-based research and inquiry done within the faculty as they move forward. I use the iterator reliability method. And then I explained to them the importance of that and how it would help us to redesign our signature assignments. The degree of agreement among graders, given a score that is more about consensus rather than really judgment, but consensus of the ratings. And it would be useful to refine and design the tools by determining if a particular instrument or rubric was appropriate for measuring a particular variable. So our signature assignments would, in other words, be what you would consider capstone assignments, final assignments at the end. And one of the things that we discovered in our self-study is that a lot of faculty members were using exams that were multiple choice or true and false, and so that's not an authentic assessment process. You have to allow the student to demonstrate mastery of the content by some type of skills assessment or some type of PowerPoint presentation that they could put together, an e-portfolio, any of those high impact practices that AAC and you have presented for us to use. Then I had to tell them the why, because obviously as faculty, you know, in order to get a buy-in, you have to tell them why we're doing what we're doing, why we're changing the process, why we're looking at, obviously, the most important part of the course, the signature assignment, that final assignment, that summative assignment at the end. Why are we doing that? And it was to, one, develop ways to encourage capacity building and apply specific methods at TSC, expand the curriculum and assessment knowledge base, determine training and professional development needs, improve evidence-based modification, and look at where's the gap in what the faculty expected the student to perform and to demonstrate versus the actual student performance. That right there was the most significant reason why we were doing this inter-rater signature assignment evaluator process. So this is the rubric. This is the rubric that I created. It allows us to look at the usability of the signature assignment, the content relevance, the content development, and the assignment purpose. And then I created the numeric value. I tried to be consistent with the numeric value that we were looking to use in all of the courses, which was a 0 to 4. And with the operational values, this was to allow them to see how well they were meeting or exceeding what we were rating in terms of their signature assignment, and how the appropriateness of the signature assignment was being established. At the bottom there, you see a note that states we're going to look at student satisfaction, employer satisfaction later down the line, which are indirect assessments. But primarily what we wanted to do right now is look at direct assessment of student learning. And this is the form, the rubric that I created to do that with. We want to look at the assignment that is being created and provided to the students to make sure that we close that gap of faculty expectation versus student actual performance. So here are the components in a more visible way for you to see. The assessment criteria is the usability of signature assignment, content relevant, content development, and assignment purpose. And then again, at the end of the rubric, you see that I put student satisfaction and employer satisfaction, because no matter what course you're in, the courses are going to build upon each other to finally get to a program level indirect assessment when the student completes the program and when a student goes out and gets employed, the employer's satisfaction with the program. So eventually what my desire was is to have student and employers be a part of the ISAE group. And this is the 5-point Likert scale that was used, and it just gives you a brief description of the operational definitions for each of the numerical values. So this is a 9-step process that I created. This just to try to simplify what we're going to do. And so when we began to look at evaluating the signature assignments, I had to give them step by step what they were going to do in the process in order to provide the faculty members with a true assessment of their signature assignments that they were using to measure and assess students' performance on the SLOs in their course. SharePoint was one of the tools that I used in order to have the faculty upload the signature assignments that were going to be provided to the students, and any rubrics that were going to be provided to the students. And then the rubric, which is the signature assignment evaluation rubric, that was also uploaded. Bloom's taxonomy was uploaded. Critical thinking rubric from AAC&U was uploaded into the SharePoint. So I had selected some individuals that were the faculty, were staff, and were students to assist me in evaluating approximately 377 signature assignments used for each course. So this is how the evolution of the Innovative Signature Assignment Evaluator work groups came about. We had sessions that were 3-day series scheduled for a Friday for fall and spring semesters. The ISAE work groups were composed of TSC faculty, staff, and students. We worked in groups of 2 to 3 evaluators for 3 hours, morning and afternoon session. The selection process was based on staff being recommended by executive director or a vice president. The students were recommended by faculty. And then I selected faculty, basically reviewing their current assessment process that they were using in class and their signature assignments that they were using that I had also reviewed. And so there were some faculty member that had about an intermediate level of understanding of the use of Bloom's taxonomy and how that would apply to creating a signature assignment so that the students could demonstrate each level on Bloom's taxonomy. Then we had 105 faculty members total, 9 staff members, and 3 students. Some of the faculty members were program specialists. Some of them were working with our CPS, which is the developmental portion of our division for developmental classes where students come in. And they were a representative of all of the general education core, as well as each of the programs that we offer here at TSC. The sample was 377. We actually evaluated 377, but based on the data that was drawn from the evaluation, I could only include 317, which is still a significant amount of evaluation samples evaluated. So this was some ground rules that I provided to the faculty, the group that was a part of the Inter-Rater Signature Assignment Evaluator group. This comes straight from AAC&U 2018 Summer Institute, where they had calibration sessions. And so I took that calibration session and kind of adapted it to this evaluator, this Inter-Rater reliability evaluation of the signature assignments. That gave them some context and ground rules to use as they scored it. So this was just simply ground rules to remind them of how they were supposed to do it. The second reason I did this was to get them prepared for calibration sessions, which is when you do an institutional level assessment of student completed work. And so that was going to come down the line in the future as we prepare to, again, change our assessment model here at TSC. So I provided them with Bloom's taxonomy, just a simple chart there to show them how to look at the different levels and explain to them a couple of verbs that they should be looking for, and align those verbs from Bloom's taxonomy with the verbs that are on the student learning outcome. This is from the value rubrics that AAC&U has put together. And this is the actual slide that I provided to the faculty to really help them understand the purpose of the rubrics, how it would, again, reduce the deictic nature of dialogue regarding assessment, and increase authentic work produced by the students across the fields of study and learning pathways within the institution. The value rubrics is excellent. So if anyone is not using the value rubrics, it's just my sheer hope that you take the value rubrics from AAC&U and really look at it to help you refine your authentic process and your assessment of even your signature assignments, as I have done here at TSC. It provides an evidence-based information and really tells you whether and how well the students are meeting the graduation level achievement that the program directors and coordinators have designed in order to ensure that the students are leaving TSC, leaving the program, and actually knowing how to demonstrate those content relevant skill sets in each program. It is this that I use for the entire program that we offered, because this is normally for general assessment, general education assessment, but when you look at all of the courses, you will see that critical thinking and communication are two skill sets that are essential learning outcomes that should be in every single course. So I simply use this for both the general education courses and our program core courses. So here is the critical thinking value rubric, and it's the first portion of the value rubric, the first side of it. And again, this is exactly the way I showed the faculty and the staff and students, making sure that they understood how to use this value rubric to assess the signature assignments. Made sure they understood the definition, and if they needed any assistance with really tying the critical thinking to the assignment, they had the glossary and the framing language to do that. I had to point out that these were faculty experts that created the rubrics so that they could understand it was a group of their own peers represented throughout many colleges and universities across Texas and probably across the nation as well. Framing language to ensure that they knew exactly what they were doing, how the rubric was designed, what you should be looking at to determine if the student was actually demonstrating critical thinking, and made it very clear that critical thinking should be able to go across all disciplines. And finally, the context of critical thinking. So looking at the courses, the different disciplines, for instance, English, and how it is supposed to be assessed within the context of critical thinking. This now shows, again, the second part of the critical thinking value rubric, where the criteria is at, where the numerical values were, and the performance levels. So I showed this to them to help them understand the same reason why I created the Iterator signature assignment evaluator rubric, to have that same consistency with a 0 to 1 numerical value and some operational definitions. Again, I revised the ISAE rubric to show meet expectation for the evaluator to provide feedback to the faculty on their signature assignment. So these are some of the preliminary data that we actually got from the rubrics and the feedback, and we found that usability was at a 1.36, which is below the expectation. Relevance was below expectation. Development was below expectation. purpose was below expectation. The overall score on the 317 signature assignments that were evaluated was below expectation. But the charts here show core curriculum separated. And so the core curriculum is, again, all of the general education courses that are included in the Texas core curriculum. And we wanted to separate that and show the faculty that were teaching these courses how their signature assignments scored on the appropriateness of demonstrating the student learning outcomes and what that meant to help the faculty look at their work. As you can see, communication, which is the English department, had the highest scores. And so the English department, from the very beginning, when I joined in March, reviewing their signature assignments and their assessment reports, I could see, again, as I mentioned, that there were faculty that really understood assessment. The next group was history. They were right there with communication. And so this gave me a great visual understanding and to present to the faculty so that they could really see how they were performing compared to one another in the designing of their signature assignments. Then the blue chart is all of our programs and the divisions, and I separated them pretty much by divisions to help each division see how they were performing as well. And it's interesting to see that in some cases where you would expect the signature assignments to be rated higher, they were rated lower. And so we dug deeper into the feedback and provided feedback to the faculty on exactly the areas in which they were needed areas of opportunity, and they could change and revise their signature assignments. Here is just a real quick snapshot of the percentage of signature assignments and how they scored. So you can see that exceed expectation and exemplary, the usability score is only about 20% of the assignments that scored exceed expectation and exemplary. There was a little over 30% that scored on the relevant. Same thing with development, about 26%. And then purpose was 29%. Now this was mind-blowing for the faculty because their own peers, along with staff members such as student services, which included financial aid, career services, academic advisors, and then students who scored their signature assignments were saying that there were elements that were fundamentally missing that would allow, if they were a student, to be able to provide and demonstrate what was expected from the faculty in the mastery of student learning outcomes. There was a fundamental gap between the expectations of faculty and what they placed on their signature assignments versus what a student could possibly or potentially demonstrate based on what was in front of them as a signature assignment. This just gives you another snapshot on a bar graph to show where the signature assignment scored. And so here is the most important part, because there's no point in doing all of this work without really coming up with some strengths and some areas of opportunities that can be shared with the faculty and allow us to use the findings to improve the way that we teach and the way that we help the students to learn at TSC. So these were some strengths. There were some cases where You know, they put comments like easily understood connection of the assignment to the criteria, instructions for assignment were clear down to the amount of words needed. This project is well structured, aligned, and assessed the core objectives and student learning outcomes were basically aligned, and it allowed the student to be creative and show their written skills. And then core reflected in the instructions, which means that the core objectives were actually listed in the assignment to let the students know what they were being assessed on, along with the student learning outcomes, and on the rubric. Because not all signature assignments had associated rubrics. And then even when a signature assignment had an associated rubric, it did not always demonstrate and reflect what the student was going to be assessed on and the alignment of the rubric to the actual signature assignment. So these are some strengths. And primarily, as I mentioned, the English department was the one that had the most significant work and reflection of authentic assessment in their signature assignments. Findings for which related to the areas of opportunities, most frequent evaluator comments. So these are a list of the most frequent evaluator comments. And so now you can see how and why the signature assignments were scored below expectation, because these items were missing and they're fundamental to ensuring that a student who gets this document in front of them as their summative assignment, that will probably be a large portion of their grade, what they saw, what they read, and what they were expected to do. And if the faculty could not provide full instructions, show explicit alignment between student learning outcomes and core objectives, it's very difficult to expect a student to know exactly what they want to do if these items were missing. So these were fundamental areas of opportunities that were discovered while evaluating the signature assignments. So lessons learned and recommendations. These are some things that we really came together and discussed at convocation. The deans were provided all of the signature assignments with specific written comments, and they were provided with the innovative signature assignment evaluators rubric that they then took and gave to each of the department chairs and each of the program directors or program coordinators to review during convocation, and really sit down and just discuss what the findings showed, what should be the lessons learned, and what were going to be the recommendations to improve teaching and learning at Texas Southmost College. And so these are all of the main themes that came out of this innovator signature assignment evaluation process. Most significant is the associated rubrics, because it's impossible for a student to know what they're going to get as far as a score if you don't provide a rubric at the same time that you provide the signature assignment. This way, the faculty's expectations of the student's demonstration and the levels in which they can demonstrate it are presented from the very beginning to the student. There's no surprises. The student is allowed to look at the exemplary, which is the first column, and the score of 4, to really hone in on what the faculty expects them to demonstrate in order to score a 4 on their signature assignment in any of the core objectives or student learning outcome criteria. So this was very important to do. And again, English the English department had one of the best rubrics, and so we use some of their rubrics to help faculty use as a guidance and framework for designing their own rubrics. The next very important item here was based on creating some low-stake learning activities and build to high-stake critical thinking summative assignment, and that also required some type of a rubric. And so if you teach online, you can understand that there are rubrics for discussion questions, right? And those discussion questions are what we would call a low-stake learning activity, but it's again allowed you to have a rubric that helped the student to know what they were expected to do, in addition to the instructions that were indicated on the signature assignment. And finally, something that I really wanted the faculty to really consider is metacognitive activities, metacognition, because metacognition is the higher level that is abstract, but is the highest level on the Bloom's taxonomy when it relates to evaluation and create. And critical thinking, if you are really honing in on critical thinking skills at the course level and using the core objective of critical thinking to really help the student to think about how to pursue reasoning and logic in order to find truth or facts, have less of a opinion, but more of an objective response to questions. Then once you get them there, now you want to move them to being aware of their own thinking and their own processes as they are learning and developing themselves in each course. This is how you move all of the core objectives in a way that they are now transferable throughout any discipline, any program, and beyond the classroom into a career. Additional lessons learned. Onboarding is necessary to assess faculty's teaching and learning. What I find is that there are very few colleges that I have heard that have very strong onboarding. And so without onboarding, even though you have a subject matter expert to teach a particular discipline, that does not mean they know how to actually teach. And so teaching is something that has to be an item used to train subject matter experts. Not every faculty member knows how to teach. They may know how to train, but they don't know how to teach. And so we really need to look at having an onboarding process that assesses the faculty's ability to teach their discipline, and also assess if they know how learning takes place and how they should be using the student learning outcomes, Bloom's taxonomy, and the core objectives to really redefine what they're doing in their class, how they're creating the formative assessments as well as summative assessments, and the learning activities and learning materials that go into course design. This is the basis of instructional design. And again, faculty may be subject matter experts, but not all have been taught instructional design, course design, instructional delivery. And so that is very, very important. That is a very fundamental lesson that we've learned here at Texas Southmost College, and we are looking forward to moving into that area and really just helping with teaching and learning at our college. And then finally, benchmarks are attainment targets with associated numerical ratios for student work. So it's not about grades, because grades include attendance and turning assignments in on time. There are other elements and grades that they can be considered an indirect assessment of student learning, but they're not considered a direct assessment. And because of that, we needed to also look at creating an achievement goal that we wanted to see and a threshold of acceptability, that if the percentage of students fell below a specific numerical rating, that they would there would be some intervention done immediately when you're doing the formative assessments to ensure that the student can get to the summative assessment, which is that signature assignment, that final assignment, and do well on. And so we created achievement goals and thresholds of acceptability for each of the course, and it included the percentage of students and the performance level we wanted to see based on the 0 to 4 rubric scale and the operational values that we came up with, which were beginning, developing, proficient, and exemplary for the general education courses. And then we came up with a separate set of operational values for programs, which dealt with either basic, intermediate, advanced, and expert, or the different levels of competency. And that was 2 options that the program coordinators and directors had to choose from, and they chose which set of operational definitions they wanted to use for their courses. So now we have common rubrics, we have common language, and we are allowed high impact practices to contribute to the reliability and face validity of the evidence of student learning outcomes that were used for direct assessment. We also included self-reflective assignments and/or satisfaction surveys that can be considered indirect assessment tools. So what's next for us? These were the things that we did. And what came out of our inter-rater signature assignment evaluation. We looked at submissions of revised signature assignments to ISAE work groups so that they could score them. Many assignments were submitted to me and allowed to be scored. And then we provided the evaluation scores and feedback by September 15th, which occurred in the fall of 2019. And then they uploaded the signature assignments and rubrics, which was already there. We had uploaded signature assignments and rubrics, but if they redesigned them, they would then upload the signature assignments and rubrics in Canvas again and take down the old ones. The next level to see if there was a change, a shift, is we would pull down the student learning outcomes on the signature assignment from Canvas, and then we conducted calibration sessions at the institutional level where faculty came together and evaluated the students' completed work on the core curriculum courses. That meant they looked at critical thinking, communication, empirical and quantitative analysis, personal responsibility, social responsibility, and teamwork. Those 6 main core objectives that have been mandated by the coordinating board. They then looked at a completed assignment and evaluated them on those core objectives that were assigned to that particular course. And out of all of this quality enhancement plan, we realized how important it was to teach our faculty how to use Bloom's taxonomy and look at metacognition as the higher level that we were trying to get our students to in order for them to transfer their thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and the way that they thought about their learning progression, and their learning strategies from one course to the other and beyond into the employer realm, where they get careers and occupations. How is this going to help our students to be better thinkers, more critical thinkers, more objective thinkers, and also be aware of their own learning progression and their learning performance? And so Learning to Bloom is our QEP, and we all work together again as a faculty body and came up with these things to do for our students and for ourselves as faculty members to make sure that we were providing the most authentic assessments to our students and make sure that what faculty expected, students would have the information that they needed to actually perform. So that is the conclusion of my presentation here. And just a quick bio. If Dr. Roberts wants to take over, he can. If there are any questions about this, please let me know. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Karen. Thank you, Christy. Well, Dr. Roberts, it's all yours if you want to stop sharing and speak. And if not, we will be done. Okay. Did the entire time to redesign the process take 1 year? Actually, no. Actually, 4 months is the time it took to redesign the process. As I mentioned in the beginning, we had to get prepared and change our assessment process to ensure that what we did was actual authentic assessment. And so we did that within 4 months. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew. And if anybody would like any information, again, there's my information. You can give me a call or you can email me. I would love to share what we did in a little bit more detail to assist you. What percentage of the student artifacts are considered for assessment sample? For each of the foundational core areas and the component area options, we do 10% of every component area. So for communication, English 1301, English 1302, those are courses included. So we do 10% of the student artifacts, and we score that at the institutional level during the calibration sessions. And this gives us a significant amount of information to then go back to our faculty and discuss, whether the signature assignments need to be revised or whether they don't, or what some assessment techniques that can be used to really assist the students. And actually, English is the discipline that is being first trained on metacognition in order to prepare us for the QEP. So English started because they had the most well-written signature assignments, and so we started with them to increase the process there and improve teaching and learning in English. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, John. And I was new to assessment as well. not because of my lack of experience, but simply because of coming into the public sector, nonprofit sector, because I worked in for-profit sector before. So just coming up with an assessment process, it was something that was new. But again, I used the design thinking to help me really formulate my my phases and my stages to assist the faculty moving forward in assessment. So yes, it was very new to me as well. And again, please take my information and reach out to me if you need assistance. If there's no more questions, thank you so much for joining this session, and I wish you the best with your assessment process. And anything you need, please reach out to me. I would love to assist you.